My family held a meeting under my own roof, and my parents announced in front of everyone, "This house now belongs to your sister." That I stayed silent. I didn't argue it, but when I took the one step no one ever expected. Every person sitting in that room forgot how to speak. I never thought the quietest moment of my life would make so much noise. The meeting room was the same. It was my own roof, the same living room where I had done my high school homework on the carpet. But that day, the weight of the place felt different. Everyone was sitting in a line on the sofas. My sister, her husband, my parents, two uncles, and a cousin who always managed to stick his leg into every matter. All eyes were fixed on the blue folder in my father's hand, as if it did not contain an inheritance decision but a divine decree. My father said in a clear voice, "So, we've decided. This house is going to Lisa." That was it. Not even 3 sentences. My sister tilted her neck slightly, as if this had already been decided long ago, and maybe it had been. The small smug smile tucked between her lips hurt more than anything else. I simply laced my fingers together and took a deep breath. There was no point in fighting. The decision had been made without me. "Hope you understand," my mother said, her voice carrying that familiar softness that only appeared when she was saying something she knew, deep down, was wrong. I only said, "Sure." And a silence spread across the room, heavy and sharp, like a thick sheet of glass crashing to the floor. But in that moment, nothing broke inside me, something opened. As if an old inner door creaked and swung open at a new angle. I was no longer the girl who had endured everything for years. I was the woman who had been working 2 jobs for the past 2 years, paying off debt, covering my mother's medical bills while my sister uploaded photos from luxury spa trips. That night, when everyone went downstairs to get pizza, I went into my old bedroom. The room was empty, holding only the dusty sunlight filtering through the curtains. As I ran my hand along the walls, I said one thing to myself. If they're done playing fair, then so am I. The next morning, I went straight to the city clerk's office. Years earlier, when the house had been purchased, the down payment I contributed was part of the record of shared ownership. My father had always minimized it by calling it family help, but that money had come from my bank account, under my name. And in America, money you can prove you paid is no longer just an emotional gesture, it becomes a legal fact. The paperwork was long, but nowhere in it was emotion required. Only facts. When I signed the documents, the clerk looked at me and said, "You're making a big move." I nodded. Yeah. About time. 2 weeks later, I was standing in that same living room again. The house was eerily quiet, as if the walls themselves were waiting to hear a new truth. My sister looked at me with raised brows. "What now?" I placed the file on the table. "This is a partition claim. I've legally restored my financial share. The house is now technically ours, both of ours. And if you want it fully in your name, you'll have to buy me out. At market value." My sister's smile froze. My father's face turned red. My mother covered her mouth with both hands. Everyone in the room fell silent at once, like someone had pressed the mute button on a remote. "This isn't necessary," my father began. "It is," I cut in. "You made a decision. I'm making mine." Lisa picked up the file, her hands shaking. She had always believed I was weak, that I would compromise. She never understood the difference between compromise and collapse. I didn't collapse. I pivoted. "Are you seriously doing this to your own family?" she burst out. "I'm doing what you've always tried to take from me," I said softly, so softly that it echoed in the silent room. "Respect." A moment later, I heard a sentence I knew I would never forget. My mother said quietly, "We didn't think you'd fight back." I looked at her. I thought the same. People began looking away. No one knew how to manage the situation. There was no emotional meltdown, no screaming, just truth. Quiet, sharp, unfiltered truth. My sister, who had always believed she ruled over everyone, suddenly seemed smaller. She had only 2 options left, either buy my share or sell the house and split the money evenly. She hated both. Both tore through her perfect little world. I stood up and walked outside. The wind was strong, but for the first time, there was a strange warmth inside me, as if a burden had lifted, as if my spine had finally straightened. I stopped on the porch and took a breath. I wasn't drunk on revenge, I had simply reclaimed what was mine. But with that right, I gained something else I hadn't touched in years. My own voice. That evening, my sister texted me, "We need to talk." I replied, "Sure. But next time, on equal terms." That was the moment I realized that sometimes, you don't need to scream to win, you just need to stand. And that day, for the first time, I understood what it truly meant to stand up for myself.